So I think we're going to kick it off.
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, Brandon. So yeah, you're just going to introduce yourself, man. Tell us a little bit about you and what you're up to, digital grind, MetaMind, that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Bats, obviously, thanks for having me. We've been friends since pretty much you've been in Dubai, so it's good that we've been able to get this going. Yeah, so Brandon, I'm founder of Digital Grind and MetaMind 3.0. Digital Grind is a traditional digital marketing agency. So on one hand, we do software development, very bespoke web development and apps for Dubai government and some big clients in Dubai and the UK, with a very specific focus on accessibility. So making sure the websites and apps are accessible for people with disabilities, so audio, visual impairments, you name it. And then on the marketing side, we obviously create content strategies, content creation, social media, general demand generation stuff. And then MetaMind, we've started this year, which was an initiative born out of trying to understand the hype of Web3 and the metaverse, and also how relevant are our services going to be in the future.
Oh yeah,
Clients were asking us all the time, like, what's happening with Web3 and the metaverse, and it's a very daunting place to start, like investigating what is actually going on. So,
yes.
We launched MetaMind as a way to bridge the knowledge gap, and that's what we're doing. We're bridging the knowledge gap in the space. And the best way to kind of describe what we do is if you look at that iceberg analogy, and above water, obviously the iceberg's out of water, and we do monthly events. So we do monthly events in Dubai, online, in the UK currently. We've got a podcast that I launched that we sit and we interview really epic people and their journey and developments in the space. And then our social media content kind of gives you the tip of the iceberg. But we obviously want to immerse people in the space. We want to increase mass adoption and truly understand the utility and the business applications of what's going on. So we have a half-day Web3 workshop to really immerse people into how we've gotten to where we are now, what to consider, like what are all the facets that goes into like Web3 and the metaverse. So we've had that we've just gone to market with, and then we offer consultancy. So we're trying to basically form a management consultancy, and that's what we're in the process of doing. It feels like a runaway train at the moment because Web3 is a space that moves really quickly. You kind of have to just brace yourself. And yeah, I guess we kind of on that mission, like through the content that we create, to answer the so what question. Like, why should we really care as people, as brands, as a community, to the developments of the space? And so that's why we focus really on the use cases and the utility side of things to answer that. So yeah, that gives you a bit of insight.
And is your half-day workshop free for anyone to join? How does that work? What's the format?
No, you can do it virtual or in person, but it's a paid workshop. But I can give you all the details afterwards if you want to share some links around.
Awesome, cool. So shout out to, we've got in the comments, Ahmed said hi. We've got LinkedIn user. I think it's like a privacy thing. We don't see who that is.
Hey, LinkedIn user.
Yeah, Mudir, he's a avid watcher. Love this guy. I'm gonna probably meet up with you soon, Mudir. Been meaning to reach out actually. Gibran, one of my team members at work. Amazing designer. Fadiso, again, another regular. Welcome. We've got Sparrow. Don't think I've seen you online before, Sparrow. Thanks for joining. And Rajveer. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for giving a shout out. So this is Hey BB. This is probably someone I'm related to. It says LinkedIn user.
Could be me. I also go by BB.
Cool. So yeah, let's jump.
Hey guys. Yeah.
So yeah, this is essentially meant to be obviously a Q&A So if you guys have any questions about the metaverse and Web3, just plop them in the comments and I'll put them up and we'll try our best to answer. In the meantime, I had a couple of questions for you, Brandon. So I think we've heard people explain what Web3 is, right? It's like an evolution of the web. Started with Web 1, Web 2 is where we currently are at. And we're looking to go to Web 3. And what a lot of people might not realize is Web 3 isn't actually something that's alive and well right now. It's very much in its infancy. Some would say theoretical. How would you describe Web 3 to someone who hasn't heard about it yet?
Yeah, so I think exactly. I think you described that quite nicely going into it. But just to start where, like, how have we gotten to where we are right now? Web 1 is basically the read-only part of the web and the internet. So when things were born, you'd go onto a website, very limited interaction. Then we've advanced obviously to Web 2, where we are now with social media, being able to create our own content, connect like we do. So it's read and write as like a good thing to think about. And Web 3 is basically the next iteration as we evolve, and it's read, write, and own. So currently, if we create this content now, I don't know if you're going to put it on a LinkedIn or after it's live or on YouTube, but the point is we don't essentially own this. This is owned by LinkedIn and YouTube potentially. They can take it down if they want to take it down. I think from a monetary perspective, you'll make a small, if people obviously advertise on it, you'll make the smaller amounts. The most of the amount goes obviously to the tech giants. And the point is, we don't like Web3 is about being able to have shared ownership. It's not about just the large tech companies deciding pretty much how the web is going to go. Like if we didn't make the decisions of how we're here right now. It was created for us, and we basically evolved with that. So Web3, if we can create our own content and share in the ownership of that, from both a monetary perspective, but also owning, our data, having ownership over our data. So if we go to, if we like put it as an example, go to a doctor's room. I went there yesterday, okay, and I had to fill in the form about who's my GP, what are these injuries. I can't remember that, okay. I mean, I definitely made up the GP, okay, 100%. But I mean, if it sits on us, like, and we own that data, we own our content, we own all of this, and we allow giving people access to that information, and they can use that how they wish. That makes sense to me, So so Web3 is the next iteration. It uses obviously certain technologies that you guys would be familiar with in terms of hearing about, but it's more about shared ownership and it being decentralized.
Awesome, cool. And so you mentioned that your one of your companies is Digital Grind, and that's kind of the one that I'm most familiar with. So I remember when you launched that. So what are you doing with Digital Grind in this space?
So Digital Grind has powered MetaMind. So MetaMind is an initiative from Digital Grind. I think so MetaMind's more the driver of, the content that we're creating, the events that we put together, forming it into more of a consultancy, but it was launched obviously with the idea of how do we educate our clients, how do we educate ourselves. So it's powered currently by Digital Grind. I guess what we're looking at is the angle of, okay, how our services potentially going to evolve. But there's a lot of content, to absorb, to understand, to really make your, start crafting your strategy as a business to make sense of like what the future holds. So we just sitting and basically taking that in at the moment, and then we'll make decisions how we, alter direction or pivot going forward.
Okay. And I think that's a good explanation. So a lot of our audience on this call will probably be design oriented, obviously, because I'm a designer. So how do you see experience design playing out in the metaverse, for example, or even Web3 in whatever shape or form it'll take?
So yeah, I think, to be honest, I think experience designers have such an important role to play. Like, uh, you know, you have to look at it from a perspective of, if we take the metaverse, okay? So the metaverse, firstly, like, let's just talk about what is the metaverse, because it is undefined. If you ask a lot of people, they'll all probably give you a different definition. So
Yeah.
my view of the metaverse is similar to, I guess, like how we have the universe. We have the universe. Earth fits as a planet. Within the universe, there's other planets that we can't, really go and live on at the moment. And I see the metaverse as the digital universe, and there's different virtual worlds that are in this universe, okay, or the metaverse. And you can go and visit these virtual worlds, purchase land in them, experience virtual experiences there, and then you can hop and go to different virtual worlds, and they all give you a different feeling, right? So I see the metaverse as a more virtual and immersive experience, okay? So built with VR and AR technology, incorporating obviously some other technology that we know. So that is just a foundation just to think of. These virtual worlds, immersive. You go into these virtual worlds, you can experience it sometimes like a shopping center, that has different things, different shops and stuff that you want to look at, or as a country, there's really big ones. But anyway, so if you look at it from an experience design perspective, you have to take consideration of, okay, if I'm designing a world, okay, like, which is massive, obviously, what are things that I need to consider? So you have to look at it from, okay, what is the access point? How are people going to access, obviously, these virtual worlds? Do they have to have a crypto wallet, like a MetaMask wallet, which is similar to how you access Decentraland, okay? Or can you just log on with because you have a browser or through your phone or like your desktop? So you have to think of entry points, and then it's about accessibility, which is we touched on it like earlier, and basically accessibility for people of determination or people with disabilities, how are they going to experience this? So one, you have to take that into consideration. Two, how accessibility for people maybe with low bandwidth. So there's a major accessibility issue that you'll need to take into consideration. Safety, like how are people going to stay safe in these virtual worlds? How are businesses going to set up their shops? Like what is that going to be around? How are you going to experience these places? So there's a massive consideration on creating a virtual world that we won't be able to unpack now. I mean, we have to really dive a lot further into that. But then you look at it from, okay, there's these virtual worlds that are created. Now a business has come to an experience designer because they want to create whatever, their shop, for instance. Like let's say NBD wants to set up a center, a virtual shop, for instance. Now you have to think about, one, again, like the flow of people. So now you have like avatars that are visiting you. So how are they greeted? What does that look like? Okay. How are you going to deal with the influx of people? Because if you look at how many people visit a website, you can get a lot of people. But the point of like these virtual worlds is for like mass adoption, like on a global scale. How are you going to deal with millions, potentially millions of people, like being able to come through? And you want to obviously capture their information or allow them to engage with your brand very seamlessly so that you can potentially nurture them to, be a potential client. So you have to look at that. So it's a whole customer experience side that you have to take into consideration. And also advertising, like maybe it's not even where the shop is. You have to look at how you're going to draw people to where you're located, and then if they are in, your shop or the virtual experience, like then what, So it's a massive task, to be honest. And you have to think about things in terms of that scale, but also you have to start utilizing the software that helps you create 3D experiences. So fortunately, there's already software, obviously, that's doing that, and there are designers that obviously create augmented reality or virtual reality experiences or games. So you now have to at least start dabbling in understanding, what are you going to use instead of Figma, for instance, how you do traditional like websites. So yeah, there's a massive opportunity, and it's very exciting though.
So that's interesting. What have you seen brands start to do in this space then, under the banner of MetaMind? Like, what are some of the things you guys are consulting, brands to look at and start to strategize?
Well, yeah. So I mean, like, look, I think brands are always wanting to ask the question, like, well, they either want to ride the hype, and that's not what we advise. Obviously, they see their competitors jumping in. Okay, well, maybe we should jump in, and it's more a marketing play, then it's going to actually make business sense. So we've been speaking to various different companies, from a logistics perspective, like, what could a logistics company do in the metaverse, for instance? Is it about the fact that you can empower users by you seeing potential goods that they can be that can be delivered to their actual physical address, and they incorporate certain technology to make those purchases in these virtual environments? Or are you using NFT technology to basically trace your good, because it's now it's a different aspect of how you can obviously prove ownership.
Right.
So there's obviously that side of things, but we're looking at it more from a strategic side. And we've seen a lot of brands that have jumped into the metaverse, as an example, like Nike and Gucci, that set up their virtual experiences in Roblox. Gucci had something called Gucci Garden, which is quite cool. People could go there, look at certain like virtual wearables for their avatar, and they could purchase that. And you have Nike, who had basically these mini games, and you can go to Nike Land, Nike Land, and basically bring sports into obviously these virtual experiences. But I mean, you kind of need to really sit on the business case. Is it going to enhance the customer experience? So I think about it like from a banking perspective, and I look at it from an angle of, when I try to get hold of NBD, or like in the past, I used to deal with Eva. Okay, now I know Eva's no longer. Okay. Yeah, and it was my goal to literally speak to a human, like that. Like, what is the way? Like, what are the keywords I need to throw down in order to speak to a human?
Fraud.
Okay,
Yes. Oh yeah. Fraud.
exactly. So no, so yeah, absolute nightmare. So I mean, then if I couldn't get through and they couldn't deal with my issue, then I'd have to drive to the bank, because I feel that's the only place where I'll be able to sort out the challenge that I'm having. Now, if you look at it from a use case potentially of a bank, let's say they have a shop, as we said, you can access it pretty much instantly. You can walk through as your digital avatar and speak to a representative. Maybe you're waiting in a queue, but you're at home, so you can make yourself a coffee or whatever. You in the comfort, you haven't left the house, and you can engage with someone immediately. They've got your information, and you can solve your issue a lot quicker. That enhances the customer experience. So you have to think about it more from like, how are we going to evolve and grow as a business case to satisfy our customers more, or increase our customer base, and provide services or products that fit the future generations.
That's an interesting point, actually. The fact that, I like what you said, companies can figure out ways of bridging the virtual world and the physical world, right? Because certain actions you perform in the metaverse will need to be executed in the physical world, right? Like you said, if you purchase something and it needs to be actually delivered physically. That's very interesting. And I think what you're mentioning, the bank example, kind of segues into Fadiso's question about impactful ways of using AR. Because I think when we're picturing the metaverse, it's usually VR, right? You've got goggles on and you're completely immersed. What are some of the ways you feel AR can be used together with the metaverse to to enhance
Sure.
that experience. And I
Yeah.
think that I've got an idea here as well, so I want to hear what you think.
Yeah. No, 100%. So, look, as I said, it's the metaverse is it's so undefined right now, and it's really at its early stage. We have no idea where it's going to go. It's you kind of have to relate it to so you have to relate it to like when we had the dot-com boom. The big companies then that guys thought was going to make it with like Flickr and MySpace and there was a few others, and it's like, okay, well, where did they end up? Okay, so you have to look
Yahoo!
at
Don't forget Yahoo!
yeah, Yahoo. Like you have to take everything at face value and also understand that the guys who've been using the technology the most have been your game developers. So naturally, like what we're seeing now is built from like a gamer's view,
Right.
But when other people catch up and they are able to utilize the technology, it's going to look maybe very different. So from an AR perspective, like what I would like to see is how we access websites, for instance, okay? So not necessarily, and the metaverse, what we see now is like within the metaverse, there's these big worlds, okay, that you go into. But it might be different in terms of AR being used that you just can access a brand's, a brand's information in a more immersive way. So if you could you think of information that you want to gather, or a place you want to go, or a product that you want to purchase, and you now wanting to learn more about a specific brand's services or products, okay? And instead of having to, see it from a 2D perspective, now you can step into that. You can basically have engagement and immersive, the immersive visuals throughout, obviously, your experience. If you think about an experience design perspective, how things have evolved, like engagement is huge now. You go onto a website, you have a chatbot, there's WhatsApp. Like it's all about how do you get information as quick as possible. So if
Yeah.
you have it in a way that's more immersive, you can interact directly with whoever you need to interact with. You access that information like this, and then you're off, and you incorporate in AR into that. I mean, I'd love to obviously see it from that way, but AR will be used in terms of the like basically enhancing obviously our physical environment with maybe gateways to enter like different metaverse worlds. So it can be I mean the sky's the limit, to be honest. You just have to think about it from your perspective, what you'd like to see, use your imagination, jot down some points, ask yourself some questions, and just allow your mind to run wild.
Yeah, and you mentioned stuff like wearables, right, and NFTs. Um,
Mm,
those are in their current configuration. They're only really accessible if you step into the metaverse, right? Whether
sure.
it's in its current state as a web page on Decentraland, you're walking around in your browser, right? Or if you're actually wearing VR goggles and you're interacting with your digital assets, you're doing that within the constraints of that digital, whether it's 2D on your screen or 3D in VR. But what's nice about AR is you can actually interact with those things outside of those constraints, right? So if you bought a pair of Nikes in the metaverse that your avatar uses when they're walking around, like these limited edition Nikes, with AR, you can actually interact with those pair of Nikes in the physical world, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, and you can also share those purchases outside of the constraints of VR and the web, right? So I feel like it's a way of experiencing your own assets, but also other people's assets, right? Because with the Internet of Things, your whatever you're using to experience AR can be synced with the next person, and you can actually see their collection of NFTs or assets in the metaverse, and you can actually share stuff without actually having to log into the metaverse itself.
Exactly. And I think that's the point is like, we're viewing the metaverse now as, what we are viewing it as like the big virtual worlds and this and that. But if you think about just like if we look at it from like an evolvement of the internet, there may be obviously virtual worlds as one side of things, but it also just when you're using augmented reality and you're combining your physical world with an augmented world, like you could take I mean, I think even Google have their Google glasses now where, you know, it literally shows you where to go instead of
Yes.
having to look, you know, on your phone, like on your phone.
Yeah.
And like you're incorporating obviously things into your human experience that enhances the experience. So this whole, I think a lot of people are so worried about the idea of it's taken away from who we are as a society, but the whole facet is we want to enhance the human experience. So how do we do that? You know, augmented reality I love, because I think you're combining two worlds. You're not just hanging out in like an immersive place.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see how things develop further. But yeah, AR will play a massive role.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about smart contracts. So we spoke a little bit in the beginning about ownership, and that being kind of central to Web3 as a phenomenon. So can you kind of explain to us what smart contracts are and kind of how ownership is handled through smart contracts?
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, look, smart contracts is like built on the premise of the statement if, when, and then. Like, so if this happens, when this happens, then this needs to happen, you know? So it's built by engineers, lives on the blockchain, but it's all about improving efficiency, security, allowing things to run by itself, you know? So it could be used for agreements, for instance, you know, making certain decisions. So even like if you take a real estate, for instance, when contracts need to be drawn up. So you go, you view a house, you like it, you want to purchase, then there's contracts that kind of need to, you know, be drawn up by an intermediary. You can replace that with a smart contract by developing code that automates that whole process, you know. And, you know, from an ownership perspective, guys are utilizing it from the purchase of whatever, like it could be, as I said, from a property. It could be from, you know, digital products. It could be whatever that you will have that would actually have a record that doesn't necessarily need to have that needs to be uploaded onto your server currently. That could be rather a contract that's uploaded onto the blockchain. You then can obviously prove ownership. It's very transparent. And it's and it's a lot more secure as well, and it's a lot more efficient, you know. So, you know, people are using it for notifications. They're using it to purchase cars, for instance, you know, so that you don't have to draw up all the contracts for obviously that. And it's one of the most in demand jobs at the moment. So is
Really?
your
Like smart contract
your
I think
smart
that's what
contract
you.
engineers.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's because it's just getting more light. It makes sense because it improves efficiency, you know. And also, like from a human error perspective, like how often do you have human error in contracts, you know? So, and most DAOs now are supposed to run with smart contracts, so which is a decentralized autonomous organization. So the smart contracts is definitely just is evolving a lot quicker and becoming a lot more in demand.
Yeah, my first introduction to them was a few months ago, beginning of the year. I was watching a video of Gary Vee talking about NFTs, and that what he finds interesting about NFTs was the underlying smart contract that was baked into the idea of an NFT, right? So if you created an asset, an NFT, you could benefit from the royalty sales of that asset in a very seamless kind of native way, right? Because it's baked into the actual technology itself. So, like you're saying, it makes these legal contracts and even sharing revenue from sales from your work makes it seamless. And the example he gave of how brands can utilize this, which I found quite interesting, is if you had like a boutique pizza place that wanted to market their pizza, right? They could create an NFT as an example that would give you a lifetime supply of pizza, as an example. So as long as you're the holder of this NFT and you would purchase it for whatever it is, like 300 ETH or whatever, which is a lot of money. But it's a lifetime of pizza, so you know, better be expensive.
Yeah.
So if you hold that NFT, you have access to a lifetime supply of pizza. But what's amazing was once you're tired of their pizza, right? Because you can only eat so much of the same pizza, you can sell that NFT to the next person. But because you were the owner of it, you get royalties every time that person uses that NFT, right? So it's and also what I found interesting was the actual business benefits because they are the ones that created the NFT, right? So they actually benefit not only from the sale of that NFT, but from the royalties that are generated through people trading that NFT, right, on the blockchain.
For sure. No, 100%. And I think like that's the point, is that smart contracts obviously lay the foundation of, those transactions from an NFT perspective. But what we're seeing now, and what I was talking to, is just how, it's being created from that as the foundation, but it's now becoming a little bit more mainstream in terms of, actual other use cases that businesses are seeing. Okay, wow, like, we can develop this contract on rather as a smart contract than the traditional way we've been doing it. So it's just, yeah, it's something that, people must start looking at, especially lawyers. Like a lot of, like, I was at a business breakfast a couple of days ago, and it was held at like one of the large law firms here in the UK, and basically they just want all their like up and coming associates to understand how they can start incorporating smart contracts, into their organization, because you're still going to need lawyers that are helping obviously craft the
Yes.
underlying, like if this happens, then that needs to happen, like the clauses, and if for actually it to be then engineered by someone that is obviously going to code that.
Amazing. That's amazing. So did you buy any land in the metaverse?
Put me on the spot. No, I haven't purchased land in. So here's the thing, okay, and this is going to be a nice, interesting discussion. So my view of like where we are right now is similar to, like, I told you about the Flickr,
Yahoo.
MySpace, Yahoo. You know,
You remember AOL?
I so I honestly I don't know if the virtual worlds that we have now are going to be the ones that we all
Yeah,
are spending time in the future.
yeah,
I
probably
think
not.
listen, if you're doing it from a flipping perspective, if you invest in property and you want to flip it, like people are making a lot of money from that side. It's not financial advice, just saying. um, but
Noted.
they're using it from that perspective, and like certain companies are taking the bet, if they purchase land now and they're able to obviously put their experiences there, the shops there, whatever, and people do come, then great. They've got it at like a decent price, I guess. I mean, it's still super expensive, which is quite crazy
Yeah,
if you see land
yeah.
prices in the virtual world. So like I haven't purchased land. I think it's something that I'm trying to see. Like I would prefer to like purchase land in an up and coming virtual world, like one that's a little bit more photorealistic, because the guys are purchasing a lot of land in like the Sandbox and Decentraland, and if you look at the graphics, it's like in a
No, but this
19.
is what we were talking about, right? That the fact that it's like that due to the limitations of the tech, right? So if the graphics were photorealistic, only a subset of people on Earth could use it because you'd need a really
Sure.
powerful machine and you need a really amazing internet connection.
But you are starting to, yeah. But the thing is, like, if you start seeing like these smaller virtual worlds that are created on like Unreal Engine 5, they are very photorealistic. So you've got one called Journey, the Metaverse company. They're pretty cool.
Okay.
Um, Spatial is another one that people are loving at the moment. And they are a lot more photorealistic. So there are ones that, and like I think Yugo. I don't know if you guys know of Yuga Labs. It's basically the guys behind the Bored Ape Yacht Clubs.
Yeah. Bought it.
And
Yeah.
they tested, their virtual world, which is the other side, and it's a lot more realistic. and they had thousands of people there as just a demo, just to see the latency, and it was working really well. So there are people that are really trying to focus on building the tech to obviously improve that, and I think it will come quicker than we believe, to be honest, because people know it's one of the biggest issues. But yeah, I guess, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna wait and see.
Works out. Because I invested in ApeCoin and lost a lot of money. I bought ApeCoin when it was 21. Now it's at $6. So I'm holding out.
Gotta hold. Did you start? Yeah, hold. Yeah, gotta hold, man.
So this is actually a good question from Fadzi. So because crypto is so volatile, how do you think they'll fix that in the metaverse, right? So if even Web3, because we're saying part of the way you're rewarded in Web3 is through tokens, which is most likely going to be cryptocurrency, but that's very volatile. So how do you fix that problem? Any thoughts on that?
That's a great question, to be honest, and like I wouldn't say I've got the perfect answer for it. I think, like, I look at it, I guess, because I see it from again, a customer experience perspective, and how do we enhance the customer experience and meet them with, what feels comfortable. If you've got now deals like Majid Al Futtaim with Binance offering crypto in a lot of, their malls and shops. But if you don't have crypto, obviously traditional, you pay normally. I think it's maybe a consideration in the metaverse, in these virtual worlds, to kind of just offer clients the option, or customers the option, integrating maybe more traditional payment methods for people. But I'm not too sure, to be honest. I don't know.
That's a good point. And I think it's also an adoption thing. Once we get to a stage where Web3 is a reality, and the underlying blockchain is being powered by individual people, like, because it's decentralized, and those people are being rewarded for keeping the network up through tokens and crypto. At that stage, I'm sure things would have stabilized, right? And only a certain the tokens that we'll be using for Web3 will probably not what's in existence now. Might be one of the big stable coins like ETH or Bitcoin, who knows. But yeah, it is a good question. It is very volatile, and it's a very good question.
It is interesting. I mean, like, it's as we said, if this is about the iteration of the internet, people are going to want to purchase with things that are not just crypto, so it needs to evolve for everyone, not for a subset. So we'll see. So
Sharad has experience with spatial. He's saying it has a few tech challenges. You can only have 50 people in a room. Navigating is a nightmare. Yeah, I think this is like
spatial 100. Yeah, it's exactly. So, but it's just, I think it's the point more about looking at what like photorealistic virtual worlds can look like. So I think people that are actually building with like look at, like, for instance, Fortnite, okay, which is a different example, right? But that is a place that a lot of people obviously experience. They can experience, obviously, the in-game, playing style. But there's also been concerts that's been held in there. I think Ariana Grande, she did something, I think.
Okay.
I think she did something there, and someone else. But they've had mass views, in the likes of, Fortnite. So you've got to kind of think about it from an angle of, if it's been able to be done, from a gaming perspective, and people have been able to create, like, these graphics that are better than what we see in Decentraland and Roblox and the Sandbox, naturally they will advance in terms of creating virtual worlds that are a little bit more real to what we know. Yes, there's obviously certain tech challenges, but you also have to look at the investment that's gone into Web 2. There's so much money that has gone to get us to where we are. we need to also understand that it's going to take time in order to really get to a place that we all deem a level that we're happy with. But we also have to start creating it and see the challenges that spatial has, work together, collaborate, and understand how we're going to solve obviously these issues. And I know there's obviously a lot of dollars being spent by like the big tech companies to obviously, try solve that. As long as they don't try tell us where to go and how it should be created, then we should be good. But if they can assist with solving certain technology, then that'll be good.
Another comment from Sharad: having meetings in the metaverse is still very glitchy. Yeah, it is very early days. I think we forget how video games started out, right, as Pong, in just two lines of dots moving on the screen, right? But now look at where we are. So yeah, it is amazing. It's very early days, and it's gonna evolve right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, 100%. And that's what's also really fun. I mean, like the fact is, we're going to be going through this. We are going to see we're seeing so many new companies being born, guys that are really building, that are really helping contribute, to obviously the development. So yeah, there's huge opportunity. I mean, Sharad is a key voice around the metaverse as well. So he's got some awesome talks, and I'm sure there's some topics that he's touched on with regards to where we are and where we're going.
Amazing. If you want to hop on the call, Sharad, I can send you a link. But I think we're about to wrap up. But I wanted to kind of backtrack a little bit because we glanced over this, and I think it'll be quite a little bit beneficial for people to kind of have us unpack this a little bit. And that is jobs of the future. So I want you to talk a little bit more about that. Like, what jobs are you seeing emerging because of this phenomenon?
Okay, cool. So look, we know there's certain jobs that are more in demand now. Okay, so your blockchain developers, we spoke a little bit about your smart contracts, the smart contract engineers. You've got NFT artists. You have now community managers that are focused on building out, your Discord community, Telegram, Twitter, doing the hosting Twitter spaces, so community managers is quite a massive thing, because Web3 as a foundation is about building, your community. And that's something, maybe we must also just touch on after this, is the whole experience design and user feedback with communities. But like some interesting jobs of the future would be like you'll have virtual tour guides, come to a virtual world. There'll be a virtual tour guide taking you around, and virtual stewards. So you kind of have to use your imagination, and you could think about, jobs that would require people, that in a more immersive and virtual world. But I mean, yeah, there's obviously there's a lot going on. And there's a site that I'll send. There's a site that I'll send you. I can't think of the name right now, and they list like all the open jobs that people can apply to within the Web3 and the metaverse space.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be amazing. Yeah, that'd be amazing to share. Because it's just interesting, because now I get a lot of career guidance type of questions from kids that are in university who was trying to transition to obviously the working world, or kids in high school trying to figure out what to study for university or at university. And I'm always thinking, like, a lot of the advice I can give them now will probably be obsolete in like 5-6 years, right? So how do they prepare themselves for them to be relevant? And because you want sought after jobs, right? You don't want to study like the classical stuff, because a lot of that stuff is now being democratized and kind of taken over by AI. So yeah, it'll be a good thing to share that list, and so we can start to think about like, how do we career guidance.
But I
as
also
well.
think I also think will be interesting. Like, this whole space is obviously about ownership, and it's a creator's economy. So it may look it may be very different. Like, students might want to decide, okay, well, I want to be a creator. I
We're
want
seeing that
to.
already, right? That's
I
people are making
know, 100%.
creators, yeah.
Exactly, and they're making really good money with it.
But what's
Um,
interesting is, like you said in the beginning, that money is a fraction of what the platforms they're posting their content on are making, right?
Well, not really. Yes, okay, a yes on like a Web 2 perspective.
Yes, from a Web
Um,
2 perspective,
from a
yeah.
Web 2 perspective, 100%. But what we've seen from a Web 3 perspective, or at least from an NFT side of things, people are using the likes of OpenSea, and they, have NFTs there. They are like artists. Like, look at Snoop Dogg. He's fully embraced, obviously, putting this content out there, and they are
Yeah.
making obviously money from the initial sale, and then royalties on top of that, which makes sense. So yeah, there's obviously going to be the next generation might be focused a little bit different in terms of what they're wanting to go into. But I'll send you that. Website, and you can have a look at, I guess the most in demand jobs, or the recurring jobs, and people will get a good insight in terms of what to take from that.
Yeah, and I love this comment about the hardware, because it's
Mm.
something that people don't actually talk about a lot when we're talking about Web3 and the metaverse, because we all immediately think of software, right? But the hardware is just as important as the software.
Massively so. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and I think it's quite interesting if we think about like being able to like fully embrace like a virtual, like a virtual world. It will get to the point where everything we kind of feel from a physical perspective, like in the life that we live now, um, would be replicated to a degree in the virtual side of things. So that's why you're seeing a lot of companies dropping like their new headsets, or your Google glasses, or like what wearables can you wear now, in terms of being able to experience things in a more immersive, and as close to, what we experience here, way. But yeah, there's a lot of hardware that needs to be produced in order for us to really help obviously speed up the actual adoption of this, and to make things easier. But I mean, there's yeah, like Nvidia, Nvidia, that they do
Yeah,
GPUs.
graphics cards. Yeah,
I mean, they are one of like they are one of the leaders in terms of helping like us really advance the metaverse. They've got something called the Omniverse, and it's something that is good to look into. But well, there is money being spent on making this a reality. I mean, I think there was one comment that Zuck spent 10 billion on the
yes,
metaverse initiative. So you have to look at it from that angle as well. So you've got major companies investing a huge amount into Web3 in the metaverse, right? These guys, they've got information that we don't have. Okay, they've
and
got
the
actually,
vision. Yes,
and they've got the vision. So this is becoming a reality. You're not going to waste 10 billion, on like just because. Microsoft wouldn't be, investing in what they invest. So like, it is a thing. It is happening. So
yeah, true.
you need to start kind of getting involved early. And I think that's also, what we'll maybe chat on, is the utility side, just for a bit, because it's like, just to peel back the layers on, from a high perspective, we see the metaverse, we see this, we see that's all going on. Cool, that's all great. But in terms of like the real excitement, at least for us, in terms of me and our company, from a MetaMind perspective, and as I mentioned, we try to answer that so what question.
Yeah.
Then we start getting excited because we start looking at the utility, and the
So
utility being
what do you
like, I
mean
suppose.
by that?
So, like for instance, like NFT technology is incredible. like the fact that it can prove ownership is massive, like smart contracts as we touched on. But like in Nigeria, they're using NFT technology that I believe they've implemented this. I know they are implementing. I think it's implemented where it's to prove ownership of housing. You know, you have an issue where people would come back to Nigeria and someone would be staying in their house, and it's really difficult for them to prove that it's their house. You know, so they now, you know, to clear the you know, I get the debate and like the frustration that they have to go through. They're using NFT technology so that that is associated to that person, and there's no doubt about it. You know, they also on the podcast, I interviewed Lauren Howarth, and she is involved in a project where they're using NFT technology to help basically trace your donation for bursaries. So in the past, you would donate to an organization and you would hope that it's your money is distributed to the right people. Now you can trace the fact that you made a donation and it's gone to the student that you wanted it to go to. So you know, there's so much going on at the moment. Like I've got a case for, and I don't know if this is done, so maybe someone can run with this, make a nice big business. But like, look at it from a South African perspective, or even an African perspective of an education system, okay? Where we know in South Africa, one of the biggest issues is equal access to education. If you go to a private school, you get a certain amount of access, you know. But if you're not that fortunate, and you sometimes even in the locations that you stay in, it's actually too dangerous to get to school and back, so you actually don't go. You could have a case for creating these virtual classrooms where people have equal access to fantastic education. You're experiencing it with other learners that you're meeting, you know. You can ask questions. They can also show things in a more immersive way. So
with
it's
AR
more practical with AR, you know. So you've got a whole case from like that side of things as well. So I mean, like, there's so many different things you can think about and use. I mean, I spoke about obviously being able to, from the data ownership side, you know, with the blockchain, where you own your own data and you go and you can use that for, you know, like for doctors wanting obviously your data, or you can use it for, you know, how many people have their results, their matric results, or their degrees, you know, where's that sitting? I have no idea where mine is, you know. But if that lives on the blockchain, you know, you have that ownership. So there's obviously a lot to think about.
This is actually an interesting comment. So NFTs for paying SARS and ESCOM. So SARS, for those who don't know, that's the tax governing body in South Africa, right? And ESCOM is the power utility. But what I find interesting about this comment is it's very right in the sense that blockchain and maybe smart contracts as well can provide that layer of transparency that's really needed for countries in Africa, for example, and basically anywhere in the world, right? Because we don't really know where taxes are going. We don't know where our payments for utility going, because you're paying for utilities every month, but all of a sudden there's no capacity for, you know, in the country, and you end up getting load shedding. So it's actually an interesting use case where you add a layer of transparency in governments by leveraging blockchain.
Yeah, I mean, that would be incredible. That's and I think that's the whole point about the blockchain is transparency. You know, like let's see like what is actually going on. But it's a mind shift, and I think that's the point as well. Like, in order for us to really embrace it as a society, you have to also lean into the change in perspective. You know, because it is a massive shift. It's not what we used to. We don't like change as it is. But when you start to truly understand it, and I was skeptical last year, I was like not for this at all, to be honest, you know. but didn't have the information that I know now. And that's
Yes.
why, it is so important that we provide people with the information so they can make their own opinions, But yeah, I'm all for it right now. I think it's amazing.
Cool. Karabo is saying he would love to jump onto the next conversation with us. Sure, man. I will reach out to you and we'll make it happen. Not a problem at all. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Karabo. Where do you work? What do you do?
Mm.
Cool.
And
So I think
maybe
we're near
whilst
1 hour mark.
yeah, I was gonna say whilst Caraba maybe touches on that, I think something we wanted to touch on is potentially the benefit from a experience design perspective with the whole community
Okay.
building angle.
Yes, yes, yes,
Um,
yes. That's right.
and so like something just basically in the foundation of Web3 is community building. So what do you like what's amazing when you start stepping into the space is how collaborative it is. Like
Oh yeah.
people just want to help. Like they really are for sharing and let's help. Everyone else is everyone is going to win basically. And with that, it's been very important for businesses to build their community. Um, and building their community is obviously, it takes time. But when you do it successfully, and you see it's done a lot obviously with NFT projects, right? All the time.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
building their community, trying to bring people in. And this is where, DAOs come in because people, decentralized autonomous organizations where people can purchase, tokens to be a part of, obviously, a little bit more invested in the direction of an organization. But if you do it successfully, where you build a community from an experience design perspective, think about user feedback. It's often a step that's missed, or not done to the full potential from a Web2 landscape. When you're developing apps and you're developing websites, it's important for people, but it's just, how do I find those users? Are they the right users? How, and that's
Yeah.
often it's a missed step, basically. People they kind of want to get on with it. Now you have your community who are your clients, who can also bring you future business, but can also help you gather information. So it's designed for the people that are going to use your business or your products or services correctly. So you can get like instant user feedback, which is amazing, and then you can iterate on the go. So I mean that's just like from an experience design perspective, quite a interesting thing to think about, and how it will obviously help you guys designing experiences in the future.
I think that's actually a good point, because what I found amazing early on, like when NFTs were really launching and becoming popular, is just how single-minded the communities were, right? So, for example, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, or like Gary Vaynerchuk's V Friends, the people that participate in that project are very single-minded, and it is really very close-knit community. And so, gathering as a brand, if you are Gary V, who created the project, as a person who owns that IP, the feedback you get from that community is really authentic and really valuable, right? And it's the fuel that makes that NFT project successful.
Well, 100%, and I think, so, like, if we just peel back, like us as humans, as a society, like what do we enjoy? We enjoy collaborating with people. We enjoy sharing in the wins, celebrating with friends, celebrating with team members, family. But the way often we go about things as a society is not essentially what is at our core. And
Yeah,
that's why I say it's a mind shift, because we are now embracing a new potential era where we're looking at it from a perspective of, okay, well, we want people in, the community, our raving fans that are going to help, obviously, all of us be successful. But it takes obviously authentic feedback, us listening, implementation,
yeah,
to really, build that.
yeah.
And And yeah, I just think it's a really exciting time, and people need to understand that it's a way that it's a way that needs to evolve, because it will make everyone happier going forward.
Yeah, and here's another kind of dimension to that. So I watched a video from Simon Sinek years ago, and this stuck with me. What he basically, so Brandon, you've got friends, right? Have you
I hope
ever,
so.
I hope you do. Have you ever asked any of your friends the question, how do you guys want me to act for you to like me? Right? Or how should I dress for you guys to love me better or to love me more? Have you ever asked that question?
No, no, I
You
haven't.
haven't, right?
No,
And
I
none of
haven't.
us really have, right? And yet
Mm.
we have these really close knit relationships with the people around us. And then you look at the way brands and companies approach it, they do exactly that, right? They go to customers and they say, how do you want us to speak to you for you to buy our products? How do you want us to behave for you to follow us and like us, right? They run all these focus groups. They try and tailor themselves according to the wills and whims of what the people want, right? Whereas if you look at how our societies are built and how human beings interact, it's the complete opposite, where we are ourselves and people who gravitate towards us are the ones that we form the closest connections with. So it's an interesting parallel to, it's actually quite interesting how NFT projects are exactly the same, right? So you have Bored Ape Yacht Club. They didn't go out and ask the public, what kind of animal do you want us to be, right? They didn't run a focus group of what do you want this our name to be? What do you want the mission of this NFT project to be, right? They just they were just a bunch of like-minded people who created a project that has a specific focus and a specific vision. Then anyone who agreed with that, anyone who gravitated and believed in the vision they had, those are the people that gravitated towards that project. And there's several projects on the internet. And you get specific people gravitating towards specific NFT projects, for example. And then that's why those communities are so successful,
Mm.
because everyone in it is authentic. The brand at the center of it is very authentic. It's just the example he gave was Harley Davidson, right? So you get people that are Harley Davidson fans who have tattoos of Harley Davidson, right? But you'll never get someone with a tattoo of Procter and Gamble. Like, why is because the way
Sure.
Harley Davidson has positioned themselves, it's really a culture, right? It's a mission and a vision that everyone who owns a Harley can represent, and it's a badge of honor if you have a jacket with Harley or a tattoo that says Harley Davidson. You immediately know what this person is about, and that's authentic kind of angle that brands need to realize, that if you really want to build communities in the metaverse and Web3, it's about being authentic, and then you will attract the people that are aligned with that vision.
For sure. And I think isn't that the goal, for all of us, is to be able to be authentic, be ourselves, and the people that are attracted to that and the vision are, they come to you, and they, help you help the growth and success of that vision. It's, easier to be authentic than try to be someone else. So yeah, we got to
Absolutely.
lean in.
Absolutely. Any last words, Brandon, before we log off? It's an hour, 5 minutes.
No, yeah, I mean, listen, I think that this was a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
And yeah, I mean, I would say it's, look, I understand people being skeptical, like 100%. I was skeptical, and that's something that what we trying to do with with MetaMind through our monthly events and podcasts is that answer that so what question. We always look at it also from a skeptic's perspective. Um, but yeah, if you guys wanted to, learn more about Web3 and the metaverse, follow us on social media or connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to jump on a call, chat with anyone. If you have questions, maybe that you didn't ask us today. And yeah, it would be obviously awesome to provide you with some more knowledge that can empower your decisions going forward.
Amazing. And on that note, I think we will sign off. Thanks so much,
Cool.
Brandon. It's been amazing.
Thanks. That's
knew this one
Thanks,
would be a good
guys.
one.
Cool.
Take care, everyone, and stay safe.